Hi, and welcome back to Pinky Boo Hauntings. I'll be your witchy host, Shy, and I'll be your guide to all things paranormal, weird, and spooky. Well, sadly, I'm recording this episode before the party, so I haven't actually gotten through it yet. And if you weren't here for last week's episode, I'm planning a whole party, and it's kind of stressing me out. But luckily, I have some good news. I have checked off quite a few things on my to-do list, and what I haven't got done, I do have planned out. I just can't do it yet. But I have to say, every time I get to cross off something from my list, a little stress falls off my shoulders. The only thing left I have to do that really stresses me out is frosting the cake. But I'm leaving that for tomorrow. I figured let the cakes cool down and let them settle. Hopefully, it will make frosting them a little easier tomorrow. On next week's episode, I should have a real update, and I really hope it will be a good one. But let's forget about all of that for now. How about we get right into our first story? My son said a name we haven't heard in 7 years, and then said it was his imaginary friend. For context, my 6-year-old son is on the spectrum. He has never heard the story I'm about to tell, or any details about this. I will get into what he said, did after I explain. So, when I was around 3 to 4 years old, I had an imaginary friend named Peter. Petey was what I called him. We always played, and after I was about 10, my mother explained to me that my brother, 14 at the time of her telling me, used to talk to Petey and his brother John, as well as their father Jack. Damn, your brother had a lot of imaginary friends. Though we know they're not really imaginary friends, are they? According to my mother, since I cannot fully recall all of the memories, nor can my brother, Jack was a mean guy that told us to do very bad things. Like bad, bad things. Some of the examples they gave was basically to unalive themselves, unalive other people, SA other people, and other things they didn't really list. Can I just say though, Jack is disgusting. That's definitely something darker, or at least a sick, sick spirit for telling you to do stuff like that. Jack doesn't deserve to be within many, many miles of any kid, or really anyone. My mom told my brother not to talk to him and only talk to the good ones. I know this isn't just an imaginary friend, but wouldn't you be more worried about your son saying something was telling him to do those things? Because what if it was a real person that was telling your son these things and he was just repeating them through his play? I mean, it's a thing kids do sometimes. Or what if something else was going on and he needed to be treated? I don't know. Maybe she was just so freaked out by it and just didn't know what to do in that moment. Maybe that's why she said that. I know if my kid said something like that, I'd be trying not to show it, but deep down, my insides would be screaming. Because how do you handle that in that moment? Turns out John and Petey were trying to protect us from what their dad did, resulting in their death. It was later found out around 2016, we were 16 and 20 at that point, that the house we lived in our entire childhood was in fact the house a serious murder took place. The father, Jackson, had essayed his sons, Peter, who was 6, and Jonathan, who was 13, and killed them both, and then himself. After piecing all of this together, it makes sense. The kids were warning us about this being an influence and trying to protect us. So I was right. Jack should have never been anywhere near a child. God, I hate those kids had to go through that. And I really hate their dad is still around them, let alone trying to prey on other kids. Fast forward to now, my son has been having some severe behavioral issues recently. And when asked why, he said his friend Jack told him to do the bad stuff, and that his friend Petey plays with him when we are busy. Yeah, it's time to cut Jack off from your whole family. The kids can obviously stay, but that man needs to be banished to a remote island where he can't bother any child ever again. We asked him, "Who is Jack and Petey?" And his entire face shifted, making a puckered O. Looking up so far, it looked like his eyes were rolling into the back of his head, and then covered his ears, saying very loudly, "God said I can't talk to you." We asked him who God said he couldn't talk to, and he blankly walked away as if nothing happened and didn't say a word. My son makes weird faces all the time due to stemming from his autism, but nothing like this. I'm not sure what he meant, as he wouldn't tell us who God said not to talk to, and just walked away extremely quiet and blank faced. As weird as it sounds, I don't think it's a type of possession, but I need advice. Has anyone ever experienced something like this? I don't think it's a possession, but he is probably being influenced by Jack. You might need to have a talk with him. Tell him that he shouldn't listen to what Jack is telling him to do. And if Jack does try anything, tell your son to come to you. It might not get rid of that man, but it might help with your son's behavioral issues. For that sick man, you need to find a way to kick his ass out of your family's lives for good. Ringing bells or even doing some smudging might help. Just don't use white sage, it's a closed practice after all. But I'm not going to lie, I feel like something like this needs more than that. Which, as a baby witch, I don't really know what to suggest. This feels advanced for my skills. Even if I did know what to do, this person probably would never hear this. But I like to use these stories as a way to make people feel less crazy when it comes to what they've experienced. And if I did have any advice, I'd like to think I could help someone else going through something similar. And yes, I know as a baby witch, I don't have a lot of advice in that way, but I have had abilities for as long as I can remember and dealt with the paranormal for just as long. So, I do know some things when it comes to protecting yourself from spirits and entities that you might not want around or that are trying to cause you harm. But this man is something I haven't dealt with. At least I don't think so. So I got nothing I know for sure would get rid of it. But if one of you guys know something or are more experienced, let me know what you think would get a spirit like this to never bother another generation of a family. Anyways, enough of my over explaining or whatever that was. Why don't we move on to our next story? My aunt's ex boyfriend. I've been told this by several different people. I believe it for that reason and a few others. This is the story. When my grandma left my abusive grandpa, many years before I was born, she moved herself and two of her three daughters, my mom and aunt, into a new house. Where where was the third daughter? Why didn't she go with them? My aunt met a guy and they started dating. He is what you would call a greaser, hot rod driving, leather jacket wearing, grease backed hair having dude. This would have been the early 70s. He sounds like the guy that would go, "It's automatic, systematic, it's grease lightning." Okay, listen, I know that joke is really bad, but I couldn't help think of Grease the whole time I was reading that. Please tell me I wasn't the only one. Most nights he would park down the street and walk to her bedroom window, tap on it, and she would let him in through it. Her bedroom was at the back of the house, and the driveway was gravel, and it went past my mom's bedroom. My mom told me every time he did it, she would hear his boots crunching in the gravel as he walked by. Well, he clearly wasn't very smart, was he? Though, why did she let it happen? I would have scared him off every time he tried. They would do whatever they did, and he'd climb back out the window and leave. We all know what they did, which is why I don't know why her mom didn't stop it. Somehow, she eventually met who would become my uncle, and they're still married. And she broke things off with the guy. He didn't take it well. One night, he stopped by and tapped on the window. She let him in, and they talked for over an hour, and he left. The phone rang in the living room, and she went out to answer it. Her friend was on the other end, sobbing. She told my aunt that he had killed himself. He drove around in his hot rod with a buddy, drinking liquor and shooting mailboxes. They pulled into a convenience store parking lot, and he shot himself in the face, killing himself. My aunt said that was impossible, as he had just left her house. She looked up and saw him standing outside staring at her through the living room window with blood all over his face. My heart would have stopped, or at least my mind would have stopped working. 'Cause what do you mean he's dead when I know for a fact he was here talking to me? Also, the fact that he's just outside of her window covered in blood now, that's not cool, dude. I figured they would have had a nice talk about things, but now I wonder what his motives are. She screamed, woke everyone in the house, and he disappeared. My aunt told him that night what had gone on. That was the only time she ever spoke about it. I've asked her a couple of times to tell me, and she wouldn't. Grandma and mom eventually told me about it years later, at different times. From then on, my mom would hear his boots crunching in the gravel every night. and my aunt would hear him tapping on the window. It got so bad for my aunt that she begged my mom to switch rooms. They did, and my mom heard the tapping on the window. Oh, wait, I think I read that wrong earlier. I thought it was their mom that heard him walking to your aunt's window, not your mom. That makes more sense why she didn't do anything. Also, my grandma told me they'd always find his brand of cigarette butts in the ashtray and only he smoked them. A few other things happened in that house before they moved. Like, my grandma woke up one morning an inch from the ceiling. When she screamed, the bed fell back to the floor. Is it sad that if my bed was floating in the air, I'd be so out of it, I wouldn't have processed it until way later. Even if the bed dropped to the floor, I probably wouldn't react. Back in 2008 or so, I happened to deliver pizza to that house. I asked the woman if anything strange went on in there, and she froze. She said the back room window got tapped on all the time, as well as knocking on the side door. Even though the driveway was paved, she heard what sounded like boots on it all the time. Her husband worked nights, so he didn't believe her or the kids. But she said almost every night something happened there. Even though I think he did come to see your aunt that night, I'm now wondering if the tapping and all of that is actually just residual. Because both could be true, of course. Maybe he loved your aunt and felt bad for leaving things the way they were. So, after doing what he did, he wanted to see her one last time and maybe clear the air. Or at least talk to her about everything. And the tapping and all the noises going on in the house are just lingering energy playing on a loop. It did seem like he did it a lot, so I could see that. It definitely makes more sense than him just tormenting his ex for years and now a random family for no reason. Edit. I spoke to my mom about this, and she informed me some of my facts were wrong. So apparently, my grandma told me these other things. This is what my mom said. His name was Joe, and after he killed himself, my aunt got a call from her friend who told her, and my aunt looked up and saw him looking through her bedroom window with blood all over his face. He did not, apparently, talk to her for an hour after he died. Although, if this is going to turn into a multi-million-dollar movie franchise, he did, because that's creepier. And you are correct. If this was a movie, it definitely would be a good scene to have right before the phone call. And then, of course, the jump scare. Also, Grandma didn't wake up on the ceiling. Her blankets were laying on the ceiling, and her bed was shaking badly, and she thought it might be him. Mom said they never had any creepy things happen there before he died. Last, an interesting tidbit, when my grandma met her late husband, she moved in with him and sold the house to my aunt, who got married to my uncle and started having kids in that house. They eventually needed to upgrade to a bigger house and moved out in the early 80s. I barely remember going there to visit a couple of times when I was a kid. Sorry for the misinformation. Oh, okay. So everything I said before, never mind. Maybe he did just want to torment his ex and her family. Also, I may or may not have forgotten about the floating mom, or I guess her blankets. That wouldn't make sense if it was residual, anyways. But it is still weird he didn't stop after she moved out of that house. Unless he doesn't know. I guess that's possible. Maybe. Or he could just be an asshole and get a kick out of it. Either way, this is why we always cleanse our houses before we move into them. Because you never know what's lingering behind. Alright, let's move on to our last story for today. It's called About 10 years ago. I had a dream that still gives me the chills every single time I think about it. Important backstory information. A friend of mine passed away when he was 19 from a sudden illness. His name was Kevin. A few years after he passed, my boyfriend and I moved in with a friend who is Kevin's best friend. We shared a one-bedroom apartment and had both of our beds in the same room. Rent is expensive in your early 20s, okay? Rent is expensive for all of us right now, so I don't think anyone blames you for doing what you gotta do. But if you are one of those people that would judge them, may you step on a Lego with your bare feet. I will say though, that must have sucked. I think I would have lost my mind if I couldn't at least have one place to myself. You guys are tougher than me. One night, I was asleep and dreaming. I can't remember the beginning of it, but my dream suddenly changed. It got really bright, and I was walking up a set of stairs leading to an apartment door. I opened the door, and there was Kevin, sitting on the couch in the living room of this brightly lit apartment. I said hi to him and sat down on the other couch facing him. He said hi back, smiling. I started asking him how he was and that we all miss him. He said he was great and that he missed us too. That he's keeping an eye on us from where he is. Anytime I asked him about where he was, he would say he can't talk about it or he'd have to leave. I said, we don't have to talk about it. He said we shouldn't be sad about his sudden passing and to live our lives and be happy, love one another, things like that. I don't think I've ever heard of a spirit saying they can't talk about where they are or they'll have to leave. That's kind of strange. After a couple of minutes, I suddenly woke up. It's the middle of the night. I looked around the room. My boyfriend was snoring away, and my roommate was asleep in his bed. I tried to go back to sleep, but couldn't shake the feeling that Kevin was somehow still in the room, as if something was watching me. The dream just felt way too real. While looking around the room, I said, Kevin? Out loud, in almost a whisper. My roommate's head lifted off of his pillow suddenly, and he turned around to face me. He said, Did you just say Kevin? I responded with something like, Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I just had a strange dream about him. He froze, then said, I just had a dream about him too. I asked him what happened in his dream. We had the same dream at the exact same time. Well, yeah, because Kevin was for sure there in the room and came to visit you both in your dreams, which a lot of spirits do when they come to visit. It's one of the easiest ways to come see loved ones for most. Because sadly, a lot of people are going to probably ignore a sign if it comes as like a butterfly flying around you or a song coming on that you need the most. But seeing that person in their dreams is something different. especially when it feels different from a normal dream. It's hard to explain, but when they visit in your dreams, you just know because something about that dream just doesn't feel like a dream. It feels like you're in a different place, a real place. And I mean, you know that person's dead, and it just doesn't feel the same because it's almost like they know too, but they're not treating it like they're dead, if that makes sense. And I'm sure if you've had a loved one visit you in your dreams, you know what I'm talking about. But it is such a bittersweet feeling. And while it hurts, honestly, I hope all of you get to have that if you've lost a loved one. Because, yeah, it hurts, but you get to hug them, you get to talk to them. Again, it's just great. And I need to stop talking about it because I'm going to cry. Well, guys, with that, we're done with this week's meeting of the witches. I hope you all are enjoying, and I hope I didn't make you cry at the end. And if you are enjoying, that is, not crying, you know the drill. Please rate and review. And if you are on YouTube, like and subscribe, of course. It will help grow the coven. If you feel compelled to, please share this with others. It helps just as much with getting the word out. Plus, if your friends are in the weird and the spooky, I think they would like this just as much as you, right? So pass this podcast around like you would a haunted doll. Except, hopefully, I'm not haunting you or cursing you. Unless you want that stuff. Then that's on you. Also, please send in your paranormal stories. I want to hear all about everyone's experiences. Whether it's a strange encounter with a spirit, a mermaid sighting, or even a possession. I don't care. Give them all to me. I just want to talk about the weird things that go bump in the night with you guys. But for now, the coven is adjourned. See you next time. Bye. And now I need to go to bed because I have to frost a cake in the morning.